Silence is golden. And if you want your PC to make less noise, we're going to show you how to make that happen right now. Whitson?
Yes.
Whitson's going to show you how to make it happen, really.
Because I'm the silence nut, right? Of the two of us, I'm the one who's like, tune the fans as low as possible, lower the power, because I want this thing to be as quiet as
Yeah.
humanly possible. Uh, we talked about this. I built a PC on this channel live a little bit ago. It's sitting in the entertainment center behind me. And yeah, when I play that, like I don't want fan noise.
Mhm.
It's a big thing for me.
I get it.
Um, so there are a few things that I always do when I build a new PC to kind of tune it for quieter operation. If you're just running everything at the default settings, you could be getting things quieter. Now, of course, there are things that you can do when you first build, right? You can look for a case that has good airflow, maybe some noise dampening materials or things like that, right? You can get a high efficiency power supply. The higher efficiency your power supply, the less cooling it needs for the same wattage value at any given point, right? So if you have a 1,000 watt gold versus a 1,000 watt platinum, that platinum one is probably going to be a little bit quieter
Hmm.
because it doesn't need to cool as much. You can get a good cooler on your CPU. Not just the small cooler that came with it, get like one of our AIO coolers. The bigger the radiator, the better. That's going to help you quiet things down. Get a well-built GPU, like one of our ROG or Tough Gaming 50 series cards. Jake, you have one in your PC right now.
I do.
It's a beautiful thing. There it is. You could put it into Q mode with that little switch. This is an air-cooled card, but we also have liquid-cooled cards you could use that will probably be even quieter. So all of these things you can take into account while you're building. But let's say you've already built your PC. What can you do with the hardware that you already have for free to tune it for quieter operation? There are a few things, and I want to explain it a little bit before we dive in. So you can just look at this beautiful image of Jake's PC as I kind of explain what we're going to do here today. There are two primary things that I always do when I'm trying to kind of tune for silence, right? When I first build a PC, I lower the power usage of my CPU and GPU. That will lower temperatures and fan noise kind of automatically, usually without reducing performance a lot.
By,
And then we're going to
yeah.
tune the fan curves, which will lower fan noise even further, but raise the temperatures back up a bit because the fans will spin slower. So this could have a small effect on performance depending on how you reduce that power usage and how much. But like we've done undervolting streams on this channel,
Several.
right, Jake? And
I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed by how much you can reduce the power and you lose 4% performance. Like,
yeah, because most products have like this efficiency curve where like the more wattage you add, the more performance you get, and then it kind of levels off a little bit at the top. And manufacturers like AMD and Nvidia will usually tune those chips to they won't be at that sweet spot of efficiency. They'll tune it a little bit higher because they want to get maximum performance without getting the chip too high, without pushing too much power at it. So you can usually lower that power usage without reducing performance very much. I'm going to walk you through the processes today, but the intent is not for you to go and set the exact same values for your PC. Because with everything, there's a bit of a trade-off, right? You might be willing to give up a little bit more performance than I do for quieter fans. Or I might be willing to deal with hotter temperatures than you are for quieter fans. Because remember, a quieter fan will mean the temperature goes up a bit. We're not going to do any damage to our CPU and GPU, right? These things are kind of built to run at pretty high temperatures, but some people just care about that temperature number. And of course, everyone's preferences for performance, noise, temperatures differ. And your system is different than mine. Like if you look at Jake's PC here, Jake, how many fans do you have in that thing? Like 9?
there's 9, just in the case. Yeah.
Yeah, 9 case fans. Okay, so Jake's got 9 case fans there. I've got 4 fans in this one behind me. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this one here. 3 PCs right here between us with entirely different numbers of fans. And if Jake's fans have a higher max RPM than my fans, well, then your fans running at 50% are going to be louder than my fans running at 50%, right? So, and I'm sitting 8 feet away from this PC while I play. You're sitting right next to your PC.
It's true.
All this is to say, don't just copy my values, because it's going to be totally different for you. This guide is more like, here are the places you should start experimenting for your setup and your personal preferences to find that sweet spot for you. With all of that said, sorry for all the hemming and hawing, but I wanted to make that clear. Let's start with the CPU. I'm not going to reboot into the BIOS of this machine for time, so I took some screenshots. There are a few ways to lower your CPU's power usage, the most common being undervolting, which is basically the opposite of overclocking. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but it's a rather involved process that takes a lot of time, may introduce some instability to your PC. If you want to take a crack at it, I would go look up an undervolting guide for your specific CPU. That's a great way to lower power usage. But since this video is titled The Easy Way, I'm going to show you a much easier way to accomplish something very similar. Not identical, but similar. We're just going to straight up change the power target of our CPU. So I'm using an AMD Ryzen 5 7600X on this PC behind me. That's a 105 watt part. I'm going to tell my BIOS to run it at 65 watts. To do this, I just enter the BIOS by mashing the delete key as I start the PC. And then you'll look for something resembling an option for power usage. This is going to differ from motherboard to motherboard and whether you're using an AMD or an Intel CPU. But on my new ROG motherboard here, the option is called Eco Mode, and it's available in the AI Tweaker menu here. So you go to AI Tweaker, Precision Boost Overdrive, and then in the Precision Boost Overdrive menu, you'll find this. You'll set Precision Boost Overdrive to AMD Eco Mode, and then you can choose what wattage to run Eco Mode at. Now, for my CPU, 65 watts is the only one under the default 105 watts of my CPU. So I'm going to choose that. I'm running this CPU at 65 watts. If you had a higher end CPU, like a 7900X, which is like a 170 watt part, you could choose the 105 watt TDP here, right? For example. So you have to look up your CPU, what is standard wattages, and then just set it here. That's it.
Easy.
We're done.
Love it.
One option. Now, while the more involved method of undervolting will maintain or even slightly increase performance if you want to do that work, using eco mode like this usually decreases CPU performance just slightly. How slightly depends on the CPU and which option you choose and all that, like I said. But on a lot of CPUs, you could decrease power quite a bit without a big loss in performance, like single-digit percentages. In a few cases, I've even seen some people report performance going up in eco mode, but it really depends. It really depends. I would expect a very small dip if you choose the right option.
Yeah.
But while decreasing power usage in this case, I decreased power usage by 40 watts. So 40 watts less power for a few percent less performance.
Significant.
Easy win. If you don't have an ROG motherboard, you may or may not have an eco mode, and certain motherboards may require you to manually set like the PPT, TDC, and EDC numbers for your AMD CPU. And you'll have to experiment or look up what other people have found to be a good option for your specific CPU. But on this ROG board, it's just a one-click eco mode option. Love that. Then you can just save your BIOS settings, reboot your computer. So that's going to lower temperature significantly. But we can push this even farther. So we're going to tune the fans. Now we can switch to my kind of live demo here. You can tune the fans in the BIOS, but we offer a much more user-friendly way to do it called Fan Expert. If you have an older Asus motherboard, this is a separate program that you can download from our site. But if you have an Intel or AMD 600 series board or newer, Fan Expert is actually part of Armory Crate, which we showed off the new version of Armory Crate a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
It's now built in. You just have to download this assistant module, and Fan Expert should pop up right here in the sidebar. When you click Fan Expert, you're going to see a bunch of options here. The first thing I would do is hit this auto tuning button. That's going to run a quick test that like kind of ramps your fans up and down to find their minimum and maximum settings. And from there, you can then start manually tweaking things. I would start with one of these presets. You've got silent, standard, turbo, and full speed up here. So like you could just first click silent mode, since we're all about the silence for this guide, and boom, you've already got a quieter fan curve, right? You could stop there if you want to. I also like to check this extreme quiet button down here. You could stop there if you want to be like kind of lazy about it. I know some people like to really dive into these, and what I do for manual tuning is I'll experiment, right? So, oh geez, sorry, I'm using a touchpad for this. I zoomed in. So I will go into fixed RPM mode, which will run the fans. It's just running the fans at whatever speed I set here, right? And I'll just kind of drag this up and down and listen. I'm usually not wearing headphones when I do this, right? But I'll ramp it up to like, okay, let's go up to 1500 RPM and then wait for the fans to ramp up. And I'll usually write down in like a little notepad document or something like, okay, 1500 RPM is not super loud, but it's fairly audible. I can tell there's a PC fan spinning in the room. Okay. So like I'll write down 1500. That's like this audible level. I'll then kind of, let's go down to like 1200. See how that sounds. Okay. Wait for it to ramp down. Okay. That's actually a really big difference from 1500. I can like barely hear that. It's there, but I wouldn't necessarily notice the sound if I weren't looking for it. So I'll write that down. I'll go down to like 800 RPM, right? You get the idea. That's 800 RPM is definitely quieter, but like, I'm listening to this. If I go back up to 1200, the difference isn't that stark between 800 and 1200, but then the jump to 1500 is much more stark, right? I find that a lot of fans will have this point where the noise ramps up significantly. And so once I have kind of some of those values of like where those audible changes happen, I can use that to set my fan curve. So I'll go back to smart mode, right? I'm not sure what happened there. Click silent. And then I'll say like, okay, let's see. If 1500 RPM is like really audible to me, right? Let's like try to avoid that whenever possible. And then I might sneak this over. This is a little bit hard to do with a touchpad. Sneak this over a little bit further till it's like 77 degrees, you know, and then like, okay, let's move this over this way and kind of make a steeper curve so that my fans only ramp up to like those audible levels when the temperature is starting to get really high,
yeah.
right? And so this is not an exact curve. I'm just kind of showing you what I would do. Again, don't copy these settings, right? But you'll do this up the chain, find for the best bang for your audible buck. You'll play some games, right? You'll go back, you'll tweak it a little bit more, and then you can click this save button to save your settings. I know a lot of people are afraid of high temperatures, but unless you're hitting like over the max temperature of your CPU, right? It's not really that big of a deal. You're not going to melt anything. These CPUs are designed to run at pretty high temperatures. You can actually look up the max rated temperature for your CPU. So if I actually look up, you'd search TJ Maxx, not TJ Maxx the store. TJ Maxx is the name of the temperature.
Is the story even still around?
I don't know if it is. So the 7600X TJ Maxx is, oh weird, that actually didn't come up with a thing right away. Usually it does.
I've been lied to.
TJ Maxx temperature, I know. Usually you'll find, there it is. Okay, I had to type TJ Maxx temperature. That's 95 degrees Celsius for the 7600X. Okay,
that's really high. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there are some CPUs that'll go up to like 105, right? Or like GPUs that'll go up to 105. So it's like, I know some people freak out if their temperature's like 85 degrees or 90 degrees, but like as long as it's within that safe realm, like you're okay. Your CPU is not going to melt. You don't want it to thermal throttle, right? Because that'll kill your performance, right? But your CPU is going to shut the computer off automatically if it isn't able to keep its temperature safe. Now, if you just want to keep it low because you want to keep it low, that's fine. I'm just like telling you this so you have a little bit of background as to like, if you're turning down your fans and the temperature is going up, it's okay. Like that's kind of by design.
There's wiggle room.
That's what happens when you it's what happens when you lower the fans. But it's okay as long as it's within that range. And then, you know, once like again, in my fan curves, I'll blast the fans once I get up to like 90 degrees or 85 degrees, right? Because I want it to cool down, but everyone's threshold is going to be different.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to say this one last time. Sorry, go ahead.
Just a couple questions. So just kind of going back to the last kind of segment, we were talking about eco mode. Someone was worried is it possible that could destabilize your PC? Eco mode.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant to mention that. Yes. So classic undervolting, where you're actually changing the values of the clock speeds per like voltage numbers, that can introduce instability. Eco mode should not. Eco mode is just telling the CPU, because the CPU will naturally like boost itself, and it will limit itself based on a power target, a temperature target, things like that, right? And it naturally does that. That's part of its built-in algorithm. What you're doing with eco mode is you're just lowering those targets. You're saying don't boost beyond this voltage level. Don't boost beyond, whatever. And so you should not be introducing any instability with that. It's all using the built-in algorithm for the CPU and just lowering those limits, saying don't boost up to 105 watts. So that's the other thing that's great about eco mode. It's really easy to enable and you should not experience any problems with it. Just maybe a little bit less performance depending on your CPU.
And
and what you set it at.
yeah. The other quick question is, were you obviously tuning fan expert here on a laptop? Can this work on the case fins of a desktop?
This is a desktop.
Oh, this is a desktop. Okay. You said
This is a desktop that I'm doing. Fan Expert is only for desktops. It's not for laptops. If you have a laptop, you have fan curves built into Armory Crate just under your device menu.
didn't you say you're
That
using a trackpad? You're using a trackpad with a desktop?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Because I'm
Oh,
controlling the PC behind me.
I see.
I'm not demoing
I
this on this
see.
PC
I
because
just
this
assumed.
PC I have. This is the PC with the newest motherboard in the house, so I'm using that to demo this. And
Ah,
so I'm sorry. I didn't realize that would be confusing. This is on a desktop. Fan Expert is only for desktops. Laptops can do some of this too, but it's going to be a little bit different. Like, I don't know if that eco mode option is available on laptops, but you could go into Armory Crate in your device menu and lower the TDP.
right.
You could totally do that. A lot of these things would apply to a laptop as well.
Yeah.
Now, the
Yeah.
problem is that a laptop, because of its small space and really small fans, you're not going to be able to get it quite as silent as
Of
a
course.
desktop, which has really large fans, a lot of room for airflow. So I don't want to like overpromise what you can do with that.
Hmm.
And you're going to lose more performance the more you lower that TDP. But you could perform similar things on a laptop to get it quieter, not super quiet like you can with a desktop, but quieter.
Right.
So I want to say this one more time. Don't just copy my settings, guys. That would not make sense. I'm using a very different PC than you in a different case. I'm sitting across the room from this PC most times. So the noise my fans make at a distance of 8 feet away is going to be very different than the amount of noise your fans make. Do some of this experimentation yourself. If you're not willing to do that, just pop it into silent mode. That's already going to give you a nice boost in quiet operation. One other thing you can do, if you don't have Fan Expert, or for some reason you just want to do this in the BIOS, you can do these, change the fan curves of your CPU in the BIOS. I think I have a screenshot of this, Jake. But
yes,
I generally prefer to use Fan Expert if possible, just because it's a lot more user friendly. You can kind of click around that graph. Whereas in the BIOS, you have to set like, okay, at 100 degrees, I want the fan to be at 100%. And at 67 degrees, I want the fan to be at 80%. And like, you're literally listing those values just number by number. It's a little bit easier to visualize when you're playing with the graph with a mouse. So that's why I like Fan Expert, but you could totally do this through the BIOS as well. You could even do it during Fan Expert and then write down your numbers and copy it over to the BIOS if you wanted to do that and not be reliant on the software.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that is your CPU. Let's look at what it looks like to do these same steps with a GPU. So GPU, also an important part of a gaming PC. And you can do these exact same things, lower power usage and change the fan curves on a GPU with our software called GPU Tweak 3. This is developed by us here at ASUS for use with our graphics cards or with any graphics card you have. It's not limited to ASUS and ROG cards. If you have a graphics card from another brand, you can still use this software to tune it. Though if you do have a card from ASUS or ROG, you have a couple advantages. One is you have that dual BIOS mode on your card. If you care about silence, I would flip that switch into Q mode, which will change the default clock speeds and fan curves to be a little bit quieter. And then you have this silent mode option here. Again, you could just one-click this if you want to, but I do like to manually tune it a little bit differently myself. You'll see one thing silent does is it changes the fans here, but it also lowers the power target to 90%. Just like we did with our CPU, right? One of the things we can do is lower the power target. Now, 90% is probably going to be pretty good for most cards. Like, that's going to get you a nice little decrease in power usage without ruining performance. But every card has a different sweet spot of efficiency. Some cards might be even more efficient at like 85%, right? So what I will usually do, and I've talked about this before, is I will take a benchmark, like 3D Mark or even the built-in benchmark for one of your favorite games, right? Make sure you're running it at high graphics settings so your GPU is maxed out, right? You want that GPU to be pegged at like 99% for the duration of the benchmark. Run that benchmark at stock speeds. Sorry, not 112, like 100, right? Record the results and then bump it down to 90%, right? And then run the benchmark again. Write down your results. Then maybe I'd bump it down to like 85. Write down your results. Bump it down to 80 and write down your results. You see what I'm doing here. When you do that, you'll end up with something like this. I hope you guys might have to maximize the YouTube window to see this. These are my results for my 3080 Ti LC in that machine over there. I went all the way down to 60% power and I ran 3D Mark times by extreme on like all of these settings. And then I actually calculated the percentage of performance or the percentage of frame rates lost for each step. And what I found was, okay, at 90% power, I lose 2% performance,
which is
that's
nothing.
pretty good.
Yeah.
85% power, I lose 4% performance.
Okay.
80%, 5.5%. Once you get below 75 or 80% power limit, you see the performance kind of starts to drop off more and more and more as you go down. So somewhere in here is like kind of our most efficient sweet spot of the card, where you're still getting most of the performance, but you've dropped like 20% of your power usage. And that's going to make the card run a lot cooler.
Right.
Very cool. So I usually set my 3080 Ti around 80-85%. So I'm only losing like 4 or 5% performance, but getting a good benefit out of that. So once you do that, so that's power usage, right? We talked about that for the CPU. That's power usage for the GPU. And then you can go tune your fans. Again, it's the exact same process that we talked about before, you guys. So you will use this manual slider, bump it up to like, okay, what does 50% sound like? I'm going to listen with my big old ears here and see what that sounds like, kind of write down. I'll try like 40%, 30%, be like, okay, this is where it starts to get like what I would consider loud. This is where it's like barely audible, but still like doing a good job cooling. And then you can go right to this edit button here, customize your fan curves however you want.
Dial it in.
It's that easy. Again, you don't have to go that far if you don't want to. You can just hit silent mode and be done. But I like to do that little bit of extra work. Again, you're not introducing any instability here because you're just changing the power target. You're not overclocking or undervolting in the traditional sense. And as long as you kind of keep an eye on those temperatures, make sure they're within the safe range, you're not thermal throttling, you can really dial back on the noise a lot by doing this without losing a ton of performance. Some people, I've already seen some comments in the chat. People are like, nope, I want max fans, max performance, overclocked. We've shown you how to do that too. That's Jake. Yeah.
Go beyond plus ultra, right? If I'm not sailing to the moon, what's the point?
I'm all about the overall experience. I'm like, I've got this sweet speaker setup back here. I want to hear the sound. I don't want to hear the sound of my PC. I want to hear the sound of the game. And yeah, if you're playing with headphones, this probably doesn't bother you. But like in my situation, I'm playing with big speakers or here. Sometimes I like to play with the speakers on.
You'll be proud of me.
My
my second PC behind me, just like you, I've got it hooked up to a TV. I put it in Q mode. I did it. But I didn't go this far. Now I'm going to go take these extra steps. I just did the Q mode. I just made sure it was nice and quiet because in that atmosphere, I don't want to hear it. With headphones, I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah. With headphones, I don't care. When I'm playing at this PC, I do tune things, but I don't care as much as when I'm playing over there and I'm using the speakers. So in like a more console-esque setup over there,
it is relevant. Yeah.
It is relevant
and useful. And Jace, yeah, cleaning your fans, that's another pro tip. If you have a layer of dust in your fans, it is going to make them less efficient. They're going to make more noise, the whole deal.
Hold up.
Uh-oh. He's going to go bring a dirty fan.
No. So here's another thing that I will absolutely mention, because sometimes the noise isn't coming from just the speed of the fan spinning. Sometimes the noise, especially if you've had a PC for a while, could be from like some dust in the bearing of the fan, or like sometimes you might just have a cable hitting the fan and it's making.
I hate noise. That's the worst. I hate that.
Definitely got to open up your PC and check that out. But I had a fan that was making a loud noise, and I was like, the fan's not running at that high of a speed. Why is it so kind of grating? And it was because they needed a little bit of extra lubrication. So I got some of this 3-in-1 oil. You can get this all kinds of places. This is like, this is for like sewing machines and stuff like that.
Everything.
Really common.
Yeah.
It's for everything.
Yeah. Lubricating blades, fan blades, everything.
I peeled up the sticker in the middle of the fan, dropped literally a single drop of that into the fan bearing, closed it back up. Thing was silent.
Less is more. Less is more of that stuff. Do not overuse it. Do not use too much.
Yep. It was, what a game changer. Like, and I'm still using that fan today.
That's amazing.
That was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's another, again, that's like on the hardware side. That's another thing you can do if you have an older PC and maybe something is making noise. But yeah. I would recommend looking at all of those things. But yeah, so again, all of this is going to be to your preferences. I know that there are some people in chat that are like don't care about noise, and I know that there are some people out there that really care about noise, and there's some people that don't want to do this much work. Again, like you said, you could put it into Q mode. The next step could just be hitting silent mode in both of these fan programs.
Right.
You don't have to do any manual tuning.
And
Every step
that does a
takes you
lot of
closer.
work. It does. But if you want to go all the way, plus ultra to quiet,
Yes.
you can do that.
Well, if you really want to go all the way plus ultra quiet, you could manually undervolt, but that's a whole nother show that we've actually done before.
We have as well. Yeah.
But I didn't want to get into that today. I wanted to keep this like the easy way. So that was the goal. But yeah, guys, that is our guide today. That's the majority of the tuning I do. Experiment. Let us know in our Discord. If you type !Discord in chat, you can join our Discord. I would love to hear what kind of stuff you guys do or have done or were inspired to do by this guide. This is just one of those things that I am kind of weirdly passionate about in the realm of PC tuning. But yeah, I'm totally curious. So come join our Discord. Tell us all about it. Your PC should sound completely different after going through these few things. That is it for our main topic today. But as always, guys, this is only part of our show. If you want to see the full ROG Pulse live stream, you can tune in every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We do giveaways. We talk about games and hardware and answer your questions in chat every show. A lot of that happens after we end the main topic. So yeah, if you have questions for us, come on, join us live, ask them. All kinds of cool stuff happening. And Jake is also streaming games every Tuesday and Friday using ROG gear. What are you streaming this week?
More Last of Us this week. Next week, we'll be playing the new King of Fighters game, Fatal Fury, which looks like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Dude, I saw the Fatal Fury thing come through and I was like, oh, sweet. As a fan of like the retro brawler type stuff, I'm into it.
It's going to be fun.
So yeah, subscribe, follow right here on ROG Twitch and YouTube channels, and we will see you guys next time.